So sitting down on the throne, having Google recommend me this entire article has led me into one heck of a rabbit hole, and I want to talk about it. Basically, the short version of this video for anyone who, you need it, the simple point of this is Zenless Zone Zero actually outperformed Weather and Wave's anniversary as well as its 2.4 update. And we have the top grossing chart rankings that we could showcase this information, and we could show pretty much who's carrying who. So yeah, stay tuned. What's up, proxies? I'm FOXSOL, and welcome to another video on the channel. Hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so yesterday I went down a bit of a rabbit hole because first and foremost I went to take a seat on my throne, and like a normal person I decided to scroll through my phone, and my phone led me to an article on pocketgamer.biz. It just randomly showed up on the front page of my Google saying you might be interested in reading an article about Zenless Zone Zero, which celebrates their first anniversary with $442.1 million, which is just 23% of what Genshin Impact's first year alone made. Okay, I'm on my throne. I am going through this article, and I will leave a link to this article and another one for Weather and Waves down below in the description, but we're going to quickly go through some things here, which are a couple of different charts that it does have that shows the mobile player spending in Hoyoverse games in their first 12 months, with Genshin Impact being #1 at almost $2 billion for its first year. Honkai Star Rail coming in second place here, going almost close to $1.5 billion. And then respectively, Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail under 500 million. Okay, it goes even further with the article. It shows the spending zone, basically showing you in the first 12 months, with the first month of July and how August, September, October, all the way to our present time of June, how the spending looks, between almost 100 million all the way down to where close to about, I would say, a little bit, probably about close to 50 million. It's a pretty good article. Like I said, I'll leave it down below and you guys can read it yourselves. It shows you pretty much a couple of bit of information. And even then, Weather and Waves also had their own article back last month, which showcases that Weather and Waves celebrates its first anniversary with 317.3 million on the mobile data, and they're also talking about the Los Angeles celebration. So basically another article that came out last month for Weather and Waves first anniversary that broke down basically the same thing, the monthly player spending in mobile, which we could see that like when Weather and Waves was first released back in May, all the way up to how, in June's revenue, and how it decreased down in September and came back a little bit in November. Basic data that could correlate a lot with a site like Gacha Revenue. Okay, now what got to me about these articles is I wanted to understand where they were collecting this data from, and with some investigation and reading more into this about where they're getting to this information with Kuro Games Open World RPG, for example, right here, this would be according to Appmagic's estimates. So this leads me down to a rabbit hole. What is Appmagic? Well, Appmagic is a website that is kind of like Sensor Tower, but their dynamic really isn't just about the revenue estimates. It's about breaking down how those revenue estimates are pretty much favored in. So from looking at something like Zenless Zone Zero here's first anniversary, we could see like for its lifetime revenue, which we're not gonna get an accurate number on this because we don't have a paid account, it just still shows that 41% of the game is favored heavily in Japan, 27% of it in China, 11% of it in the United States. This is where people are spending at. 9% in South Korea, Taiwan is 3%, Hong Kong at 2 million, at 1%, 1% in Canada, and then the remaining 7% being completely worldwide from all the other countries, which really, again, showcases that Japan is really carrying forward with, their spending in Zenless Zone Zero. When we look at something like Weather and Waves, we can see that there's a little bit of a dynamic change here, but when it comes to all the spending here, 31% is favored in Japan, 23% favored with China, 14% in the United States, South Korea is 13%, 6% in Taiwan, 2% in Hong Kong. Germany comes up on this list. Apparently Germany really loves Weather and Waves that much over some other things, but Germany comes up at a 1%, and then the remaining 10% with all the rest of the worldwide countries coming together. Now, looking at this, we can look at more information. Right here, when you take a look at RPD, this is revenue per download. So the moment the game is downloaded, typically when it comes to like Eastern countries, which would be China, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, that they're going to calculate is more that scope. Every download is going to be seeing a $21.11 average by the person spending. In West, it's $11.71, and this would include Australia, Canada, France, Germany, United Kingdom, United States, and together everything globally, when you take all Western culture, Eastern culture put together with remaining countries coming in line, it comes out to an average of 12.5 per download. When we look at something like Zenless Zone Zero, Eastern cultures, the Eastern player base, China, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, is 27.21. Western side is 10.11, which is a little bit lower than what Weather and Waves is, and that is Australia, Canada, France, Germany, United Kingdom, and the United States again, and globally altogether is 13.3. So the one thing that we can take a quick look here based on these two number sets is that Weather and Waves is a little bit more favored in Western culture and Western player base, which I'm pretty impressed. Okay, I'm pretty impressed. Now, a lot of people, when you're going to look at something like this data is not gotcha revenue data. Gotcha revenue data collects from Sensor Tower. Some people will say it's fake, everything else. This basically determines, values, and some of this data is not exactly, properly calculated, especially now with the new gotcha revenue, how it's taken care of. It still gives a good guesstimate, but it's not something that a lot of people trust. So what makes Appmagic, in my personal opinion right now, highly better than something like Gotcha Revenue is that this website calculates the gross revenue per day. Not just like once a month, here's a report. Every single day, this website, you can go ahead, you can look at it every single day. You can pick whatever application, you can come by day, week, month, or even year, and you can determine different placings on the average because they record the top grossing, the top free games that the store, Google, Apple will recommend as number one, and then even the top feature, which is like the more advertised scenario. Top grossing means right here is how much money is being spent. This is the feature score. This is like, I guess you could say, like your publishers on this third category right here. These are your publishers that is paying for advertisement. This is Google itself or Apple that's recommending this higher tier. Like right now, YouTube Kids, as of right now in the year of 2025, highly recommends YouTube Kids. So that could be Google spending money. That could be a lot of different factors there. But the top free is ChatGPT right now that is being pushed as, hey, everybody, you should download ChatGPT. Like, that's on your home screen. Alrighty. So getting a little bit more involved, we have a graph here, and I'm going to use Weather and Waves and ZZZ that's going to showcase from June of 2024 all the way to June of 2025, and the future predictions as it is showing right now of July, where pretty much everything has laid out in terms of the top grossing chart rankings. So with the recorded data, as you can expect, Weather and Waves before ZZ came out was high, right? You can see that it is high on the list. You can see that when Zenless Zone Zero came out, though, that Zenless Zone Zero, as expected, took over in July. It took over in August. It took over in September. It took over basically in October as the top grossing game of that month. It changed in January, which we're going to talk about that in a little while because there is some very important information here, but it did take over in January, and that makes sense with Weather and Waves being 2.0. It came back in February. It took top spot in February. But Weather and Waves here, you can see that in March, Weather and Waves barely, but took over ZZZ. April, ZZZ took over. With May, the anniversary of Weather and Waves, ZZZ went downhill. And then here in June, which this kind of actually contradicts what Gacha Revenue has, Zenless Zone Zero was the top grossing game of the month of June. And this led me into, like I said, this all led me into a rabbit hole of taking a look at this, where I could do an app comparison and I can take a look straight up, either by month, week, day, or year, what was happening. And these are the two selected games that I have, which is Weather and Waves and Zenless Zone Zero. I even put Crystal of Atlan up here just to see, because this recently just came out. Well, I mean, I can unclick that and we can just leave it right here. In fact, I think there's also, yeah, Brown Dust 2 that someone wanted me to do. We'll take that off. So we just got Zenless Zone Zero and Weather and Waves we're going to compare it to. I was surprised by this. As top grossing game, what happened here? This led me looking at it by the week to see where the placement is. Like the first week for June right here, which actually starts in May, we're just being a day. Yeah, June 1st, Weather and Waves is on top. Second week, give it a second. Zenless Zone Zero, which would have been expected, the anniversary was top grossing, and Kuro Games' Weather and Waves was in 15th place. ZZZ was in number 1 place. Looking down further, this is with the anniversary of Weather and Waves this week. As expected, Weather and Waves came into first place, but ZZZ maintained a 3rd place ranking. Looking at the next week after that, Weather and Waves is in 2nd place, and Zenless Zone Zero is in 12th place. Now, ZZ had the Fufu banner, which is the following week, and it came back into 2nd place as top grossing. And then we look at basically the final week right here, which Kuro Games took back over. Now, I was looking very heavily in this because I honestly do believe that Weather and Waves would have taken over in terms of the top grossing. But then I figured out that we can change something here. If we go ahead, we just put in Western culture, Western player base. For the month of June, Weather and Waves was the top grossing game above a game like Zenless Zone Zero. Okay. We look at something like the Eastern player base. Zenless Zone Zero was carried by China, Japan, Taiwan, and so forth, more in the month of June over Weather and Waves. So this got me to say, okay, well, first and foremost, this does not calculate, you know, PC data. This does not calculate, I already know all this. This is just calculating mobile data. But in Eastern culture, like, mobile gaming is really more particular what they're playing. I wanted to base pretty much different information against information. I would take a look all the way from June of 2024 right here to see where different placements are at for games. We went through July, and I left it just on the Eastern culture, okay? Because things would make sense. Your main data source would come from the Eastern culture. Now, I'll say it like this. It follows through with August, September, October, November, December, where basically where gacha revenue's at follows the same data. It's not until January of 2025 that I was a little shocked. Top grossing in the East was Zenless Zone 0, with Kuro being right under it as in 8th place on the top grossing charts, which I was kind of shaking my head on. I was like, well, how, like, I would have expected Weather and Waves to be first, because this is Weather and Waves 2.0 anniversary, where, well, not 2.0 anniversary, but this is the release of 2.0, that in January, that WUWA had a lot more to offer, I would think. I broke this down by the week, everything else, but what really showcased it was the Western players, the Western side, that actually all together with the West and East made it to where Weather and Waves was the top grossing. Because a lot of people will come in and they'll tell me like, oh, China and everything else, they favor Weather and Waves more. Korea favors Weather and Waves more, all this. And it's the Eastern side that really pushes the information. When it comes to Weather and Waves is pushed very much more heavily in Western, from all the data that I've seen in this website, which I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys to go utilize it, for you to go find information. But yeah, this showcases every single day what is on the top grossing chart and what is performing better. And as you can see right here, with both Western and both Eastern, right? Zenless Zone 0 did do better in top performance over Weather and Waves. If we take the geography and we take the Western out of it, the Western culture out, it's the East that really does this, that brings it up. Yeah, wrong spot. If I look at it just from the Western side, it was more favored with the Western players. Now, grant you, in the Western players, apparently the true mobile game that has succeeded all over in Western culture has actually been Raid Shadow Legends. Okay? That's basically what it's always been. But with the recorded data that they're doing every day of who is in charge, it's been a little bit more eye-opening to see the performance of these applications, of these gacha games through here. And I'm probably gonna do a live stream and we're gonna break down some more of this. But breaking down like the first technical week in just the Eastern culture, ZZZ was number 1. Weather and Waves was in 12th place. Second week, number 1 is now for Weather and Waves. 3rd place is Zenless Zone 0. 3rd week, Zenless Zone 0 manages to stay in top 10, and Kuro only drops down to 2nd place, right under Genshin Impact. And this is just from the Eastern culture side. And then the 4th week, Zenless Zone 0 comes back into 3rd place, while Kuro Games Weather and Waves drops from 2nd place all the way down to 14th. It doesn't even manage to stay in the top 10 like Zenless Zone Zero did. So with all of this put together and you look at it, truth of the data kind of shows that Zenless Zone Zero not only outperformed with its anniversary over Weathering Waves in terms of revenue, but in the month of June, it actually outperformed Weathering Waves 2.4 as well. So we'll discuss more about this on my live streams and stuff like this. This is going to be a website that we're going to utilize. I do appreciate it to these two articles right here from pocketgamer.biz for pretty much showing me something else besides Sensor Tower and Gacha revenue that showcases more of the performance values of these games. There's a lot more information in general that we have looked at that we can compare, you know, Weathering Waves to Genshin Impact. We could compare Weathering Waves to any gacha game, any application. We could compare Weathering Waves to ChatGPT and see who's been outperforming in that regards. But this has been a great little website that, in terms of just the performance value, I think it's really good, and I think you guys should check it out. You can do a free account, get some base information from it. It looks like you need to be a company to get the paid version of it. I'm going to try to talk to him and see if there's an individual account and see how much it would be to get a paid account on this, so that way we can start utilizing Appmagic and get a little bit more information from them. So until next time, keep it classy, keep it jazzy, always keep it real, and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace.